All right, now we're on the second page of the notes. Now we need to figure out how to write the equation of the hyperbola when we've already got a graph. Obviously, this one is horizontal. So that tells me that the x value is going to be the one that's positive. So I'm going to have x here, and I'm going to have the y over here. I know it's going to be equal to 1. My center is at right here at 0, 0. So I don't have to worry about anything being added or subtracted to the y values. I know I have to have a minus sign because it's a hyperbola. All right, then you have to figure out your a and your b value. From your center, your vertex is 1 unit away. So that tells me my a is 1. If you'll notice, this point right here, the 1, 1, tells me that my slope on those asymptotes, my change in y over my change in x is 1 over 1. So I also know that my b value is 1. So it's going to be x squared over 1 minus y squared over 1 equals 1. So that's the equation of the first one. The second one, my center is at 0, 0 again. So I know I'm going to have another x squared and a y squared without having to add or subtract a number. This again is horizontal. So that tells me that my x squared needs to go first. I have a minus sign because it's a hyperbola. And then my y squared is second. It's going to be equal to 1. This time my vertex is 2 units away from the center, so that tells me my a value is 2. So it's going to be x squared over 4. This time my change in y over change in x, if you'll look at your point right here, I went up 3 and over 2. And so the number under my y comes from this, and that's going to be 9. It's that value squared. So it'll be x squared over 4 minus y squared over 9 equals 1. So this is the equation of that hyperbola. All right, let me scroll this up a little bit. All right, now we're going to write the equation when we've been given the vertices and the foci. So I've got a vertex at, Okay, I've got a vertex at 3, 1. 3, 1 right here, and one at 3, 5. Okay, your center has to be halfway between those vertices, so it's going to be right here at 3, 3. So I know I have a center at 3, 3. I also know that it's a vertical one. I mean, if you can kind of see your centers here, your vertices are above and below that center, so that tells me that it's vertical, which means that my y value has to go first. So I'm going to do y minus 3, the quantity squared, and then you have a minus sign, and x minus 3, the quantity squared, showing that center in there has to equal 1. Now we've got to figure out our a and our b values. Remember, your a is always the distance from the center to that vertex. So it's 2 units away, so that tells me a is 2. It'll always be squared in your equation, so 4 is going to go here. Okay, then we've got to figure out our foci. Okay, our foci are at 3, 0, so right here and up here at 3, 6. And remember, your foci is c units away from the center, so that's 1, 2, 3 units away. So that tells me c equals 3. And we can do c squared equals a squared plus b squared to determine b. So we'll do 9 equals 4 plus b squared. So b squared equals 5. I don't really care about what b equals because in my equation I'm putting b squared anyway. So I'm going to put 5 right here. So the equation for this hyperbola will be y minus 3 squared over 4 minus x minus 3 squared over 5 equals 1. All right, let's do the other one. All right, we've got a vertex at 2, negative 1, and we've got one at negative 4, negative 1. So those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units away. Halfway would put you at 1, 2, 3 right here at negative 1, negative 1. So my center is at negative 1, negative 1. Obviously, because my vertices are horizontally on either side of that center, it's going to be a horizontal hyperbola. So my x will be written first. So I'm going to do x plus 1 squared, and then minus y plus 1 squared has to equal 1. Okay, so my a value is always the distance from the center to that vertex. This is 1, 2, 3 units, so a equals 3, and that's got to go under the positive 1, and it's going to be squared, so 9 goes there. My foci, let me change colors real quick. My foci are at 3, -1, so right here, and at -5, -1, so right there. And they are 1, 2, 3, 4 units away from the center, so that tells me that c equals 4. So then when you do c squared equals a squared plus b squared, we'll get that b squared equals 7. And again, I don't care about b, I really care about b squared because that's the number that's going to go into my equation. So 7 will go there. All right, there's your equation. Okay, I'm just going to scroll it down a little bit and do the rest. Okay, last example, we're going to write an equation of our hyperbola and make sure that it's put in standard form. So the first thing you want to do is group your x's together and group your y's together and move this 19 to the other side. So you'll have -4x squared minus 16x plus y squared minus 2y equals 19. All right, then you really want the coefficient of your x squared and your y squared to be positive, so I'm going to group these together and factor out the GCF, so it'll be -4 times x squared plus 4x, and then plus this one, the y value is positive, so we're just going to, well, I can write a 1 there, and then y squared minus 2y equals 19. Okay, so now then we need to complete the square. So you take the middle term of each of those and you're going to, I'll write it, sorry. So we'll have x squared plus 4x plus some value here, and then you'll have plus y squared minus 2y plus some value here equals 19. To keep the equation the same, you need to add that value to both sides. All right, so how we get that value? You take that middle term, so in this case, the 4, you divide it by 2, and you square it. So I'm going to change pen colors. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and when you square that, you get 4. Now what I'm adding to the other side isn't going to be 4, because what I'm really adding is 4 times 4, which is a -16. So that's going to be added to this side. On this other one, you're going to be doing this middle term, the -2. You're going to divide it by 2, and then you're going to square it. Well, -2 divided by 2 is a -1, and then when you square it, it'll become +1, and you're adding a positive because you're doing 1 times 1. You're adding a +1 to both sides. Okay, so the way this is going to factor will be a -4. This will factor to be x plus 2, the quantity squared, plus 1 times y minus 1, the quantity squared, equals 4. Okay, so you remember on a hyperbola you want it to always be equal to 1, so I'm going to divide every one of these by 4. So your equation becomes a negative, and then x plus 2 squared over 1 plus y minus 1 squared over 4 equals 1. You want the positive one really to be written first, so I'm going to rewrite this as y minus 1, the quantity squared over 4, minus x plus 2, the quantity squared over 1, equals 1. And this is my equation written in standard form. So I can tell that it's a vertical one since the y value is positive. I can get all the information that I need to graph it now. Okay, that's it. Thanks, y'all.